My mother threw me out when I was 7 months pregnant, but the part that stayed with me was not the suitcase on the porch. It was the way she locked the deadbolt before I had even reached my car. I was 27, swollen ankles, $89 in my wallet, and a baby girl kicking hard enough to make me stop halfway down the driveway. My younger sister watched from the upstairs window while my mother said, "You have always made life harder than it needed to be." 6 years later, that same woman walked into the glass lobby of the company I had built and told my receptionist she needed $230,000 by Friday, or she would lose her house. She did not ask how my daughter was. She did not apologize for the night I slept in a supermarket parking lot. She looked at the name on my office wall, looked at the woman I had become without her, and said, "Family doesn't let family become homeless." Then she slid a folder across my desk containing a repayment plan she had already drafted for my money. 3 months after that, at Thanksgiving, she placed another envelope beneath my dinner plate and asked me to sign away the truth about the college fund she had spent before throwing me out. That was the night I stopped wondering whether I was a bad daughter and started asking why being a good one had always required me to disappear. My name is Hannah Brooks. I live in Fort Collins, Colorado, where the mountains sit west of town like a reminder that some things can be enormous without making noise. When this began, I lived 40 miles south in a beige two-story house in a suburb outside Denver with my mother, Cheryl Brooks, and my younger sister, Megan. My father died when I was 19. He had been a high school shop teacher, the kind of man who fixed neighbors' fences without charging and kept coffee cans full of screws because you never know which one saves the day. He left behind a modest life, insurance policy, a paid-off pickup, and an education account my grandmother had created for me when I was little. I knew about the education money because Grandma June used to tell me, "This is your doorway. Nobody gets to decide you are too inconvenient to walk through it." After Dad died, my mother became the person in charge of everything, including the story of what happened to that money. Whenever I asked, she said medical bills and family expenses had eaten most of it. I believed her because grief makes you easy to manage. Megan believed whatever kept her comfortable. She was 23 then, pretty, social, and permanently one small crisis away from becoming the center of the household. If Megan lost a job, Mom called it a bad fit. If I asked for help with tuition, Mom told me adults handled their own choices. If Megan needed a car repair, Mom used the emergency fund. If my brakes squealed, she said I should learn budgeting. I was the reliable daughter. I worked full-time at an outpatient physical therapy clinic, took evening classes in hospitality management, bought groceries, paid half the utilities, and handled every practical thing nobody wanted to notice. Mom loved telling relatives, "Hannah is my rock." For years, I thought being someone's rock meant they valued you. I eventually learned rocks are useful because nobody asks whether they are tired. The pregnancy was not planned. My boyfriend Nate and I had been together for 2 years, but the more real the baby became, the less present he was. By my 6th month, he had moved to Phoenix for a restaurant job and sent a message saying he was not ready to be somebody's whole future. I cried, finished my shift, and went home expecting at least a roof. Instead, the final argument began over money. Megan was engaged to Tyler, whose parents owned several car dealerships, and Mom was determined our family would not look small beside his. She had paid deposits on a bridal shower, hotel rooms, a rehearsal dinner, and a photographer. One evening, I found a bank statement for the education account Grandma June had created for me. The balance was nearly gone. A $12,000 withdrawal had been made 6 weeks earlier. Mom did not deny it. She said the account had become family money after Dad died and that Megan's wedding was a once-in-a-lifetime event. I reminded her that I still had student loans and a baby coming. She stared at my stomach and said, "Exactly. You are already asking this family to absorb one mistake. Do not act entitled while we are trying to give your sister one good thing." Megan came downstairs during the argument. When I asked whether she knew Mom had used my college money, she looked away. "Mom said you were basically done with school anyway. I had only paused one semester because pregnancy and full-time work were exhausting me. In my family, my pause became permission the moment someone else wanted what was mine. Mom dragged my suitcase from the hall closet and told me that if I was going to accuse her of stealing, I could leave. I thought she was bluffing until she packed my clothes herself, carried the suitcase to the porch, and held out her hand for the spare key. I asked where I was supposed to go. "You are 27. Figure it out." Then she said the sentence I would hear for years afterward. "You've always been a burden, Hannah, and now you're bringing another burden with you." My daughter moved beneath my ribs. I placed the key in Mom's palm. She locked the door before I reached my car. That first night did not feel like freedom. It felt like fear with nowhere comfortable to sit. I parked behind a 24-hour grocery store because there were lights and cameras. At 7 months pregnant, I could barely sleep in my car. Every time headlights crossed the windows, I woke. Around 3 in the morning, a man tried my passenger door. I hit the horn until he ran, then drove away shaking. By sunrise, pride had become a luxury my baby could not afford. I called shelters. Most were full. At my prenatal appointment that afternoon, a nurse named Marisol Vega took one look at me and asked where I was sleeping. I lied. She asked again. I cried. Marisol checked the baby's heartbeat, gave me crackers, and said, "We are going to deal with what is true, not what sounds nicer." My blood pressure was high. She found a maternity residence with a bed opening in 3 days and gave me the name of a diner hiring morning staff. The owner, Teresa Moreno, looked at my stomach and asked how many hours I could stand. 4, maybe 5. Then you work 4. You sit when you need to. She hired me that day. When an older customer from my mother's church recognized me and asked why Cheryl was not taking care of me, I lied that I was saving for nursery furniture. After he left, I cried in the restroom because shame is strange. I was embarrassed by being homeless even though I was not the person who had locked the door. 3 nights later, I moved into Sparrow House. My room had 2 narrow beds, a metal locker, and a window overlooking a parking lot. To me, it looked like a palace. The first time I locked the door from inside, I cried from relief. My daughter, Lucy, arrived 5 weeks early after my blood pressure spiked during a diner shift. Teresa drove me to the hospital. Marisol met us there. My mother was still listed as emergency contact because I had forgotten to change the form. A nurse called her. Mom did not come. She sent a text. "I told you not to drag me into consequences you created." I read the message while Lucy slept against my chest, tiny and warm, wearing a knit cap that kept sliding over one eyebrow. Something in me became quiet. Not healed. Quiet. I stopped waiting for my mother to become the mother I needed. The first week with Lucy was the loneliest and most beautiful week of my life. At night I watched other new mothers hand their babies to husbands, sisters, and grandmothers while they showered or slept. I learned to do everything with one arm. Teresa brought a grocery bag full of diapers and pretended the diner had ordered the wrong size. Marisol sat beside me for 20 minutes after a checkup because I admitted I was afraid to fall asleep while Lucy was sleeping. Nobody asked what I had done to deserve their help. Nobody reminded me of the price later. That difference changed me. I had grown up believing every act of care created a debt, because in my mother's house kindness was usually followed by an invoice disguised as loyalty. Sparrow House taught me that support could simply be support. One evening, another resident found me crying over a hospital bill and said, "You know, needing people isn't the same as owing them your life, right?" I wrote that sentence down because I did not believe it yet. Years later, it became one of the rules I built my company around. I opened a spiral notebook I had carried from the house. It was full of old class notes and cafe sketches from a hospitality project. On a blank page, I wrote a list. Safe place, hot food, childcare, flexible work, job board, private room to make calls, help without humiliation. At the bottom, I wrote, "Build what I needed." At the time, that sentence was not ambition. It was survival trying to imagine a shape. Lucy and I stayed at Sparrow House for 4 months. I returned to Bluebird Grill part-time. Teresa let me bring Lucy during quiet prep hours and set up a portable crib in her office. Marisol helped me apply for childcare assistance. I met Jonah Kim when Lucy was 4 months old. He came into Bluebird Grill every Tuesday with a laptop, and one day noticed me drawing a floor plan on the back of an order pad. Coffee counter, play area, work tables, 2 private rooms. I explained the idea of a place where parents could work, attend online interviews, use short-term supervised childcare, and connect with community services without feeling like a case file. Jonah worked for a small business development center. He did not call the idea inspiring. He asked how it would make money. I hated the question until I realized respect sometimes sounds like asking an idea to become stronger. We surveyed parents at libraries, clinics, shelters, and community colleges. People were losing jobs because childcare failed for one morning. Students were missing class because a sitter canceled. We built North Star Commons around that gap. Cafe, co-working space, short-term childcare, evening classes, and partnerships with clinics and workforce programs. Revenue came from food, memberships, catering, room rentals, and employer-sponsored passes, while referral partners funded free hours for families in crisis. I cleaned offices at night, worked breakfast shifts, and learned accounting online. My first grant application was rejected, as too dependent on my personal story. I cried, rewrote it around actual costs of missed work and employee turnover, and won $10,000 on the second try. Our first location was a used coffee trailer beside a community college. We made $112 on opening day. I taped the receipt into my notebook beside the words, "Build what I needed." 2 years later, North Star Commons opened a permanent site in Fort Collins. By year 6, we had 3 locations, a catering division, contracts with 2 hospitals, and a manufacturing company, and 42 employees. I was not a millionaire living in a mansion. I was a woman with a mortgage, a payroll, a daughter in kindergarten, and a company sturdy enough that other people's livelihoods depended on my judgment. That responsibility kept me humble in ways my family never had. I paid myself last during hard months. I knew the names of employees' children. I refused marketing campaigns that used struggling mothers as sad background images. We sold service, dignity, and time. I did not speak to Mom for almost 6 years. She sent birthday cards to Lucy twice, both unsigned except for Grandma. I returned them unopened because she had never met my daughter and had made no attempt to repair anything with me. Megan married Tyler in the mountain wedding my education money helped fund. I learned about it through social media. In the family portrait, Mom stood beside Megan beneath an arch of white flowers. The caption said, "Everything I have ever done was for my girls." I stared at the plural word longer than I should have. I did not comment. I eventually learned Megan and Tyler moved to Arizona after his dealership group expanded. She posted lifestyle photos, baby announcements, and holiday captions about family loyalty. Neither sister nor mother ever asked where I had spent the first night after being thrown out. The past returned during a routine bank review when North Star applied for a larger lease. A loan officer flagged an old personal loan tied to my social security number. I had never opened it. The address was Mom's house, and the balance had been paid with money from Grandma June's education account. I requested records. The withdrawals showed my college money had helped cover Megan's wedding deposits, personal credit cards, and a shortage on the house. Worse, there was a form saying I had voluntarily transferred my remaining interest in Grandma June's estate to Mom. The signature looked like mine from a distance. It was not. Property records showed Grandma had left me a 25% interest in the house where Mom had thrown me out. She had expelled me from property partly belonging to me, then used my name to make that interest disappear on paper. I put the documents in a blue accordion folder and locked them in my office safe. I had a daughter and employees. I did not want my life consumed by a family war. Nearly a year later, my receptionist called upstairs on a rainy Monday morning. "There is a woman in the lobby saying she is your mother." Through the security camera, I saw Cheryl beneath the North Star logo, wearing an expensive beige coat darkened by rain. When I came down, she moved toward me with both arms open. I stopped before she reached me. Hannah, thank God. I knew you wouldn't let your mother lose everything. Not hello. Not I am sorry. Not how is Lucy. In a conference room, she explained that she was 4 months behind on the house after borrowing against it to help Megan and Tyler through one of his failed dealership ventures. Another loan had been used to cover the first. She needed $230,000 by Friday. She had seen an article about North Star's hospital contract and assumed I could provide it. I am not asking for a gift, she said, sliding over a repayment plan she had already written for my money. I asked why she believed I owed her. I raised you, until I was 7 months pregnant. Her expression tightened. And look what happened. You became responsible. I stared at her. You think throwing me out created this company? I think consequences forced you to grow up. She still wanted credit for the person I became after surviving her. Then she said, "You help strangers every day. Do not tell me you would let your own mother become homeless." I asked about my education account. The tears stopped. I asked about Grandma June's estate form. She looked away. Those were family decisions. You were young and unstable. I was 27. You would have wasted the money. I opened the blue folder and placed the transfer form beside her repayment plan. This signature is not mine. Mom's face changed. Where did you get that? Not denial, just fear that I had found it. I told her I would not give her $230,000. She called me vindictive and left the conference room furious. In the lobby, where employees could hear, she said loudly, "You built a business helping mothers, and you will not even help your own." That afternoon, she posted a photograph of herself, crying in her car with the caption, "Sometimes the people you sacrifice everything for become strangers when they succeed." Relatives quickly filled in my name. Megan texted for the first time in 6 years. "Please just pay it. Mom cannot survive losing the house." I replied, "How much are you contributing?" She did not answer. Mom then called 2 North Star locations and told a parenting blogger that I had abandoned an aging mother. I wanted to publish every document. Jonah stopped me. "Do not turn your company into the family group chat." We released one sentence saying North Star did not comment on private family financial matters. Then Mom crossed a different line. She sent me a photograph of Lucy leaving school with the message, "A child deserves family." I am still her grandmother. I immediately changed Lucy's pickup permissions and notified the school. When Mom accused me of being dramatic, I stopped answering. A day later, she sent another document, claiming she had invested family money in North Star during its earliest months and therefore owned part of the company. The paper was dated 3 weeks after Lucy's birth, when I lived at Sparrow House and North Star existed only in my notebook. My signature appeared at the bottom. It was false. Teresa read it and said, "She is not asking you to rescue her anymore. She is trying to make you afraid not to." That clarified everything. I did not need revenge. I needed records, boundaries, and safety. Sparrow House confirmed where I lived. Teresa had old payroll records. Jonah had time-stamped drafts of the business plan. Marisol found the clinic note documenting that I had been sleeping in my car and the hospital message where Mom refused involvement. The bank produced the education account transfers. Grandma June's file showed my share of the house. The truth did not need screaming. It needed dates. The Friday deadline passed. I did not write the check. The lender began preparing to take the house. Mom told relatives I had chosen corporate money over family. Megan flew to Colorado and asked to meet. We met at a coffee shop, not my office and not Mom's house. Megan arrived carrying a designer handbag and cried before sitting down. She said she had not understood how serious everything was. I asked whether she knew Mom used my education money for her wedding. She looked down. "Some of it." "How much did you think?" "I don't know." "Did you ever ask?" She shook her head. That hurt more than if she had lied. "You knew enough not to look." Megan whispered that Mom had always said I was stronger and would figure things out. "Did it ever occur to you that I became strong because nobody came when I needed them?" She cried harder. I did not comfort her immediately. For years, I had cleaned up everyone's discomfort before it could teach them anything. Megan said she and Tyler could maybe contribute $20,000, but they had their own mortgage and 2 children. I have a mortgage and a child too. But your company. I stopped her. My company is not my personal wallet. 42 people work there. She said Mom would never forgive us if the house disappeared. She threw me out of that house while I legally owned part of it. Megan's face changed. I showed her the estate record. She read the page 3 times. Mom said Grandma left everything to her. Mom says what makes her choices easier. Megan covered her mouth. For the first time, I watched the golden child meet the machinery that had protected her. She asked what I wanted. I want Mom to stop using my name, stop approaching Lucy, correct the lies about North Star, and account for the money she took. I am willing to help her find housing and financial counseling after the house is sold. I am not paying to preserve the exact life built on what she took from me. Megan called that harsh, then immediately apologized for calling it harsh. Progress sometimes arrives mid-sentence. 2 weeks later, Mom invited me to Thanksgiving at Aunt Debbie's house. She promised there would be no money talk, no pressure, and no surprises. I agreed to 2 hours because Lucy had begun asking about cousins she had never met. Thanksgiving smelled like rosemary, butter, and old resentment. The house was full of relatives who had already heard Mom's version. She hugged Lucy without asking. Megan and Tyler were there with their children, and Megan gave me a nervous smile. On the mantel sat a photograph of Grandma June beside a sign reading, "Family, where life begins and love never ends." My place card was at the far end by the kitchen. Lucy's was beside Mom. I moved Lucy's card next to mine. Dinner began with a prayer about forgiveness. For 20 minutes, everyone behaved. Then Mom announced she had prepared something for healing. Aunt Debbie passed envelopes labeled Family Gratitude. Inside mine was a typed statement saying I accepted that Grandma June's education fund had been used for shared family needs, that Mom had managed everything in good faith, and that the house dispute would remain private. A pen rested beneath my napkin. I looked at Mom. "You promised no papers." "This is not about money. It is about peace." "It is false. Aunt Debbie told me not to cause a scene." I did not bring the document. I held up the page. "This asks me to say I approved money being taken from my education account." I did not. Mom said I had benefited from the household too. I paid rent and groceries. Then you threw me out while I was pregnant. She turned to Megan. "Tell her we all made sacrifices." Megan stared at the table, then said, "No." Mom blinked. Megan's voice shook. "You told me Hannah's account was almost empty already. You never told me the wedding deposits came directly from it, and you never told me she owned part of the house." Tyler stopped eating. Aunt Debbie turned toward Mom. Mom accused me of poisoning Megan against her. Then Lucy asked, "Grandma, did you take Mommy's school money?" My chest tightened. Mom answered, "Your mommy is confused about old grown-up things." I stood. "Do not tell my daughter I am confused." Mom said I was overreacting and turning Thanksgiving into a public trial. "You made it public when you posted about me. You made it a family event when you hid a false statement under my plate." Aunt Debbie said, "Hannah, she is your mother." I looked around the table, and I was her daughter when I slept in my car. I was her daughter when I gave birth without her. I was her daughter when money left for my future paid for someone else's wedding. She does not get to remember the word mother only when it needs a return on investment. Mom started crying. She said the house was all she had left. I placed a copy of Grandma June's estate page beside the statement. "It was never all yours." She asked whether I would really let the lender sell it. "Yes." The answer came out steady. "I will help you apply for an apartment. I will pay one deposit directly to a landlord if necessary. I will give you financial counseling contacts. But I will not pay $230,000 to preserve a house after you used my inheritance and my name to keep it." Aunt Debbie called that charity. "No, it is help with boundaries." Mom pointed toward the door. "Then leave. If money matters more than blood, leave." The sentence echoed the night she expelled me. But this time I had Lucy's hand in mine, a safe home waiting, and people who would notice if I disappeared. I put on our coats. Megan stood too. Mom ordered her to sit down. Megan said, "I'm taking my kids home." Outside, snow had begun falling. Lucy asked whether Grandma hated us. I crouched beside her. No. Grandma is angry because I said no. Is no mean? Sometimes no feels mean to people who expected yes. We drove home without dessert. The house was sold in January. The valid debts were paid first. My documented share from Grandma June's estate was recognized, and the education money was addressed through a repayment agreement from Mom's remaining proceeds. I did not take everything. I wanted the truth acknowledged, and the false claims stopped. Mom moved into a one-bedroom apartment near Aurora. She said I had downsized her life. In reality, Dad had done that years earlier. My refusal simply stopped hiding it. I paid her first month's rent directly to the landlord after she completed a budgeting appointment. I would help someone stand without carrying her on my back. Megan began therapy and apologized without asking me to forgive immediately. She admitted she had enjoyed being the easier daughter because it was safer than defending me. We began meeting for coffee every few months. I stopped being the sister who fixed everything. Mom took longer. Her emails swung between anger and apology. I kept communication limited and told her contact with Lucy would depend on consistent behavior, no guilt, no money demands, and no undermining me as a parent. She called those rules controlling. I replied, "Control tells another adult what they must do. A boundary tells them what I will do if they choose it." 3 weeks later, she wrote that she had started counseling. I did not celebrate the promise. I watched the behavior. Over the next year, Mom kept a clerical job, made repayment installments, stopped posting about me, and asked permission before mailing Lucy a birthday card. The card simply said, "I hope your day feels safe and happy." No guilt, no request. I let Lucy keep it. Eventually, we met Mom in a public park for 45 minutes. She brought one children's book and left without asking for money or another visit. That restraint mattered more than tears. North Star grew, but success changed meaning for me. We opened a fourth location inside a renovated library with a cafe, childcare room, workforce classrooms, and 6 short-term family apartments upstairs. On opening day, Teresa cut the ribbon because she had given me 4-hour shifts when nobody else wanted a visibly pregnant waitress. Marisol stood beside her. Jonah brought the original coffee trailer receipt I had taped into my notebook years earlier. Lucy, now 7, helped paint a wooden sign for the children's room. It read, "You do not have to earn safe." I cried when I saw it. That night, after everyone left, I stood alone in one of the upstairs apartments. It had a bed, a crib, a locking door, and a small kitchen. Nothing luxurious. Everything I had needed. I remembered counting Lucy's kicks in a supermarket parking lot and wondering whether asking for help made me weak. It did not. The weakness had been believing the people who harmed me deserved unlimited access just because I shared their blood. My mother once told me being thrown out made me successful. She was wrong. Being thrown out made me afraid. Other people's kindness gave me stability. My own work gave me direction. Boundaries gave me a future. Pain may start a story, but it does not deserve credit for everything beautiful that comes after it. I did not build North Star because my mother was cruel. I built it because Teresa hired me. Marisol believed my safety mattered. Jonah made me sharpen the idea. Sparrow House gave me a locked door, and I decided Lucy would grow up, knowing help did not have to come with humiliation. Today, Mom and I do not have the relationship she wants. We have the relationship her behavior can safely hold. Megan and I are 2 sisters learning how much of our old competition was created by a parent who benefited from keeping us unequal. Lucy knows relatives do not get automatic access just because they share blood. I still have the suitcase Mom pushed onto the porch. It sits scratched and ugly on a shelf in my garage. For years, I wanted to throw it away. Now I keep it because it reminds me of the difference between rejection and release. That night, I thought the locked door meant I had lost my family. In truth, It forced me to see I had already been living without the kind of family I deserved. The most satisfying part of this story is not that Mom lost the house or that the education money was acknowledged. It is that when she finally needed me, I did not become cruel. I became clear. I refused the $250,000 rescue, protected my daughter, corrected the lie, and offered only the kind of help that did not require me to abandon myself. I used to believe being a good daughter meant proving I could survive whatever my mother did and still return when she called. Now I know self-worth can sound quieter: a declined transfer, a child's seat moved beside yours at Thanksgiving, a locked office door, or the sentence, "I will help you find somewhere safe to live, but I will not sacrifice my future to preserve the life you built by taking from mine." So tell me honestly, if the mother who threw you out while you were pregnant returned years later asking for enough money to save the house she once locked you out of, would you pay because she is family, cut her off completely, or offer help only on terms that finally protect your own life too?